Hey everyone, welcome to our fifth episode of Ask the D&D Professors. I'm Elizabeth McLean. I've been here the whole time. I don't need to introduce myself. Chris, do you want to say hi?
Hello, I'm Chris. I've also been here the whole time. I don't know that I really need to introduce. I probably need to learn how to speak. I don't know that I need to introduce myself, but I
Optional.
am excited because we're going to be talking about the live stream that we did last week, which is based on an adventure that I wrote. And with us, we have a friend of OTG, Frank. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Frank Fonseca Jr. I also have been here the whole time. Don't tell anyone. I'm here, I suppose, representing the Dots RPG project. But I guess I'm mostly representing myself as a fan of OTG and the stream. And good game. And I can't wait to talk about it. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Yeah. Even before we had done the stream, we had the plan to hopefully use this as a talkback episode. I don't think we've ever done a talkback with a DM, a player, and someone who watched the stream before.
No.
I think this is a new combination for us. I don't know if somebody's probably done it. Goodness, there's enough people in this space, but I thought it would be really cool. And yeah, a little bit of history. Frank, we met in person at PAX East, right? But we were on Discord before that, doing some panels, which will hopefully be released soon. Atlas is here on tech, and Atlas has been captioning and captioning and captioning and captioning.
It never
Thank you.
stops.
But hopefully we'll have those up on YouTube before too long with Dots, because those were some fun panels.
Yes, they were.
I don't know. I know it sounds funny to start at the end, but I just really want to make sure you get your chance.
Sure.
To set this up, Chris, you had some incredibly epic DM moments where you were describing things with an eagle flying and its perspective and all of this, and it was the last monologue where the technology failed us. We made do, and we are good at that, but I want to give you some space.
We made it work. Yeah, for context, I am working at a music festival in a small mountain town in western North Carolina, and the internet here is shit. Sorry, that's our one curse word for the stream. And it, of course, we did like a over 4-hour stream, and when did it cut out? Right at the very end, right as I'm wrapping up this whole one-shot adventure. So that was deeply frustrating. I'm still mad, in case you couldn't tell. It's fine. It's going to be fine. I'm going to get over it. We're going to process. But I thought it could be cool to show, and basically just go back through some of the images that I had, because I really enjoyed looking for them and then finding them and kind of setting up the vibe that I was going for. So I thought it could be fun to share a couple of those and just kind of talk a little bit about them and you know, that sort of thing. So I don't know, Atlas, are we seeing Owlbear Rodeo at the moment?
Now you are.
Beautiful.
And
right.
Make sure you describe these just...
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so
not that you weren't going to describe them. Let me be clear. Chris is very used to filling in all of the words that I don't say. This is what happens. I was going to say we work together too much, but like I feel
we've been working together a long time. Anyway, yeah. So the images of this was a black and white image in a kind of like almost cubist art style, like a very stylized art style of like an island in the water with this kind of walled city with all these onion domes and kind of intricate.
Did you say cubist?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. It's more stylized and kind of like,
I teach that part of the music history curriculum. Keep going.
It's fine. Okay, it's not exactly cubist. Anyway, point is, it's very stylized. But this is
why am I giving you shit?
When I was looking on Wikimedia for copyright-free things, this is something that came up as associated with the name Katesh, this name of this legendary city in Russian folklore. And I thought this was a cool image of the city itself as seen from kind of a distance by the players. And then, let's see. This was the one and this I did get to show on the stream, but this was the one representing Little Katesh, the little town that they got up to shenanigans in, and started their candy empire.
So it's technically called Hard Candy LLC, hard
Yes.
candy for hard people. But our mascot is a goth goat in the sense that it has like black fur that looks like lip liner and eyeliner. So other people will refer to this as Goth Goats Hard Candy LLC.
I see.
And for those of you who have been asking, yes, we actually are working on merch. It's a little
we are working on
complicated
making t-shirts
because we aren't real. We're imaginary. We're an organization that only exists in our minds.
We exist only in the eyes of granting agencies and not actually as a nonprofit.
And to be clear, like we do have an account with something called the Virginia Tech Foundation, which is a nonprofit, so you can donate money to us. For some reason, we keep forgetting to drop that link on the website, but it's on our Discord, so join our Discord.
Anyway.
Anyway.
So, well, just to describe this image, right? It's a wooden, a town made of wooden buildings that are kind of built out of logs with kind of bright, colorful folk art on different parts of the buildings and little like stands where they're selling presumably goods, including candy. And in fact, now that I think about it, this image is why, to some extent, we got into that whole thing, because there's these little like stands there in the foreground in the bottom, and they're like, is there a candy stand? And I was like, sure.
No, but I thought the candy scheme was hatched up before we got to town.
That's true. That's true.
That's why we asked for one. I wasn't. I went into this thinking I was playing the straight man, and then it was like, there can't be any.
There's no such thing. No. Well, so then this is the image that I showed them, which I thought, I was curious what their reactions were going to be to this image. But this is one by a 19th century Russian painter of the Siren and the Alkonost, the two kind of bird spirits that, needed the memories. Which, like, we can get into that whole thing, but I thought, again, just a cool image that I found that happens to be copyright free. This one I didn't get to show because this is, if it'll load, there we go, a representation of the battle that takes place in the opera that was happening off screen. I mentioned, the prince is going to fight the Atars. This was a painting that I found of that battle. Of course, like, it's not humans versus shadow elves and undead, but it's close. This one is it's kind of stylized, but in a different way, and it's kind of like primitive folk art sort of style. These kind of green hills, a battle in the foreground, and then there's red clouds in the background, and then another battle happening in the clouds, which is pretty cool. And then the final image, the one that I didn't get to show because internet shenanigans, is this one, which I was going to show as the kind of, they finally are able to enter the invisible city, this kind of, transformed this golden land. And so this is an image of, again, like a big walled city with white towers and golden domes. And it's actually, there's my dog barking for no reason. It's a set design from the actual production of the opera that first happened in, I want to say, like 1904. I'll check that in a second. But yeah, this was just a really cool illustration that I thought would be a nice kind of wrap-up thing. But of course, I did not get to show it. I think I showed it to the players after the stream had ended, when my internet finally got its, act together. But yeah, I really liked this illustration. Actually, you can see the name of the Bilibina is the name of the artist. This is from 1929. Never mind. So different production then. Anyway, so those are some of the things that I didn't get to show, or only got to show very briefly as part of the images. Oh, am I gonna sneeze? No. But anyway, so yeah, there was a lot of a lot of imagery and stuff I had ready if we needed it, but the players did things I did not expect, which is to be expected.
Colorful enough
mhm.
without the images. Yeah, I'm just hanging out in awe of some of the choices.
I guess do either of you all have favorite moments from the stream?
Yeah, mine was very early on. After Amy had turned into a goat, and her and Doug begin their shenaniganery. She broke me as soon as she realized she could talk in her wild shape form.
Yeah.
And she hits us
It's
with
a new 2024 rule. Yep.
Yeah. She hits us with the Gary, not in front of the children. I never recovered from
Oh, she was so good.
They were, oh gosh, both of them were amazing. And it's funny because in a stream like this, it's taken us a while to try to figure out what we're doing, like how actual play is different than a home game, how we're doing in general, but also like how you manage. This was only our second fundraising stream ever. Very different in the sense that first time we were raising money for Virginia Tech, and that had its own kind of limitations. But you know, I mentioned thinking I was going to play a pretty straight edge character, and I didn't get into too many shenanigans. But in some sense, I felt like my role was a little bit of making sure that I'm communicating with everybody, kind of our great moderator Dakota, Atlas running tech, like all of that stuff. But then also knowing the character sheets forward and backward and looking at the 2024 rules and like a lot of things that in a home game a DM would do. So it was really interesting, you know, in that moment, like how much am I able to just like chill and appreciate? But when I was able to tell her, oh no, you can talk, that felt so good. Like more than anything I think I did as a character, like being able to as a person be like, oh, you can talk, like confirm that new rule thing, because it just like opened up.
It did. It provided a lot of opportunities for shenaniganery. I think
it's a weird rule change because now you basically get to keep any of your stats you want and take animal stats you want. The way that the 2024 Druid Wild shape, because the saving throws in particular, right? Like you can pick if your strength saving throw is better, you can keep it. So it's no longer the like, oh, you keep your like mental stats,
right,
in charisma, wisdom, but you take on the animal stats. It's a lot more complicated and strange. You also don't get the animal's HP. You only get the instead you get temp HP equal to your druid level, I want to say. So that was
I was just gonna say it was interesting with the two of them, because so we did a session 0. You should always do a session 0 for any kind of thing, even if it's just a one-off charity live stream that's nothing but chaos and you know, off-color puns. Still do a session 0 because sometimes your two like celebrity D&D players decide they want to have a torrid backstory where they like were former lovers but now they're on the outs. They have a child, which I think one of my favorite moments was when I did the reveal of the child who was the mayor and they forgot they had a child.
No, so okay, I will I'll give you a little context there. They remembered their child, they forgot his name.
Okay.
But also, their version of events was that they had this like secret love child.
Right.
I guess they had decided that Gary knew of its existence, but not much, like not a lot of updates. Other than the fact that it was like love child was now an adult and was incarcerated. So like some of it was the surprise at like forgetting the name was Yuri, and some of it's like, why is he the mayor? So the fact that like the mayor was running a con and ended up mayor and was being responsible, that was wild. That was absolutely wild. I
enjoyed being able to pull that one. It was very fun. But like that's the kind of thing where like, you know, it's great when your players have, you know, they're just like creative about their backstories, and there's fun stuff in there that you can mine as a DM and kind of use it to improve things or to add color or to, in this case, add to the shenanigans.
For the pot.
Yeah,
It
stir the
just
pot.
totally fit too.
Well, it also
Um,
gives them a reason to want to defend Little Katesh, which is something that I ran across in playtesting, where, like, you know, depending on how they get into it, depending on who the characters are, they may not have a reason to want to defend this little town they just showed up at. They may just want to get out of there. So I thought this was a way to make sure that they would be invested, and thus want to try and save it.
Not run from your adventure.
Indeed, which, like, you know, I guess I could adapt to that. Favronia just shows up earlier.
I mean, there is a certain point where, honestly, whether especially for a live stream, but I think even for a home game, sometimes the onus is on the player to figure out why they're there. Because I've built a few characters where either the party's going a direction my character would not go, or like the DM's asking us to take a risk that it doesn't feel like my character would take. They're not invested enough. And I really struggled with that the first few years I was playing. And eventually I realized, like, no, that's actually part of my job, is to figure out why. And even in the session 0, it started more of like how do we know each other, right? We don't want to just be random people that met in a tavern. So the idea was that Doug and Amy had their characters had this history. Sister Yana was initially going to be a cleric, but like Amy wanted to do druid things, and it made perfect sense. Like, there's no reason for us to think the nun backstory is limited just to being a cleric. So I thought that was awesome. And that they had this past. I was still not sure who I was playing when we did the session 0, because a lot of what I was going to do was kind of fill in the gaps, right? Do what needed to happen. And what's funny is my character could have done a lot more to beef everybody up in the final combat, but she was busy.
We're going to talk about that final combat.
We'll talk about that. But yeah, the idea would be that my character, which I think I was already leaning towards Toblin then. At that point, I think it was Toblin, or it was bringing back my rogue from before, would know Gary. So it's like, oh, there's a problem. Sister Yana calls Gary. I know Gary. And then David comes with me, effectively. There were a couple different versions of that part of it. Just to give us a little bit of like how we relate to each other. And I appreciate that. That's one big difference between your average knowledgeable D&D player versus when you're working with actors. They just start figuring out, like, what's my character's motivation early? Like, how are we connected? Because any other choice kind of springs from that, including things that are not terribly advantageous in terms of character build. And never making a choice just because it's advantageous, which I respect.
I think that's a good point, right? Like, they are both professional actors, and that's a learned behavior, right? That's a part of their trade craft, and I would say probably most RPG players are not professional actors, so they don't have that skill set, they don't have that muscle. And if you're playing a game that does not tell you, hey, gel your characters together before you start playing, or, you know, set up some background questions, right? Then you're just not going to know to do that until you struggle. You hurt a little bit a few times. Like, man, these 7 games that we tried did not launch. Let's do it a different way. And, you know, so sometimes the game you play will give you tools and help you bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And I like that it wasn't, they just had these character concepts they were importing. I mean, there was never a conversation of Doug doing anything except another version of Geralt, but that's because he thinks it's hysterical. And he's not wrong. But this particular version was shaped by the adventure, but also choices made based on, like, relationship to other characters. Because I think one of the mistakes I see a lot in this video game Baldur's Gate 3 era of D&D, and also the actual play era, which I feel like we need, it's like reality TV. When you say actual play, like, you need to question the word reality and the word actual. But like, they're really playing, but there's this extra element that's different from what we know. Right. But anyway, in this era, I think people think about their character concepts too often in isolation. And there's something to be said for how
Mm,
much more successful the story is when you're thinking about relationships
yeah.
between characters.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that was one thing that I really loved about Gustavo and his character, David, is
he's
that,
so good at
like,
that.
he had, like, it was a pretty simple backstory in some ways, right? That, like,
Mhm.
he's this, down and out, like, former rich kid, maybe still rich kid, who wants to be an
Unclear.
adventurer because daddy didn't love him enough, basically. But,
Yeah, yeah.
and based on a character from Succession, which I have not watched Succession, so I don't know the details. At least loosely, some aspects of it loosely based on this character. But then that allowed for this kind of, those amazing moments of like, Papa, I mean, Gary, just like working through daddy issues in real time, which I thought was brilliant.
Can
But
we
the
just
point
talk
is,
about how much we appreciate Gustavo after this? But yes,
oh,
keep going.
amazing. Yes. No, just that having even having just a little bit, right, of a starting point for here's what who my character is, here's how they relate to others, right? Not just here's who they are and here's their tragic backstory, but here's how they relate to other people in the world or the other player characters, right? That even just a couple of things there can go a long way. And one thing, Gustavo's in chat right now. I can't see chat because my internet is bad. So if something funny happens,
Hey,
let me know.
Okay, can I talk about Gustavo for a second?
Yes.
He is awesome. So I have been dying. Chris will back me up in this. I have been dying to get Gustavo and Doug playing together. Um, there was a version of this where I was not going to play. I want to be very clear. Like I had made it clear to Chris. I was like, if it comes down to me or Gustavo, it's Gustavo. Because when we were playing Tosca, and I didn't really know, I was scared of Gustavo. Yeah, I was intimidated. I didn't know how to talk to him. Anyway, we were playing Tosca together way back. And I had a joke character, and he brought a real character. And all of a sudden, I'm like playing a jokey character that has a real arc, and I'm like tearing up as a player trying to play this character because of the emotion and the story that Gustavo's giving me without ever pushing anyone out of the way. Right? Like that's what I have a hard time doing is when I see good moments for my character, I don't know how to get in there well, or I might overly dominate a session. It's that like hanging back, knowing when your moment is, stepping back, forming these relationships with each other. Just excellent at this. He's so good at this.
Yeah, no, and it was really fun to watch as a DM, like having had that little, the moment to establish all the connections, see how they play out in the course of the game, and even like, I when we first did it, I was like, damn, this is so much backstory. It's so interesting and intricate. I wonder if if we're gonna have time to get into it in a hour one shot, right? But still, like a lot of it came out, which was pretty cool. Like, so I think it rewards that investment, and thinking, and not to bring it back to the whole like actual play phenomenon, but like there are aspects where thinking like an actor, thinking, or even not just like an actor, but thinking about character and narrative and story, like that helps. And then that can also inform the choices you make in something that's more mechanics heavy, like combat.
I'm always down for character-driven combat choices, like to a fault. I love it.
Yeah.
I definitely want to give props to Gustavo also, like being in the room with such big personalities and having really pretty subtle character, but finding your moment in that atmosphere. Props for that. That also is a skill. So
Yeah.
good job making your presence felt. Yeah, it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not downplay how intimidating it is to walk into an actual play scenario with those two.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Gustavo, known former theater kid, so I think that's part of it, which is amazing. But speaking of intimidating people, like Doug looks intimidating, Geralt sounds intimidating. Doug is a sweetheart, and I did not know this kind of going into our first fundraising live stream that we did for Virginia Tech. And I was super duper nervous beforehand and just like, oh, what if I screw it up? Like, you know, what if he doesn't like it? And then he was a sweetheart. It was so much fun. We had a great time. He did insane things, which made the stream that much better. It was a blast. And so same thing here. And then I had the same experience with Amy Vorpal, who like I intentionally refused to look up more information about because I knew it was just going to freak me out more. Because I've seen her before. I've like in browsing various kind of D&D media on the internet. Her name has come up, and so I knew she was like a known quantity out there. But then I looked at her website and I started seeing just how much of a known quantity she was, and I immediately closed that website because I was like, I can't do this. I cannot know. I rather just want this to be as kind of chill and fun as it can be, knowing that what we're doing is somewhere between. I mean, obviously we have people that are professional actors and professional D&D players playing with us, so in that sense it is akin to actual play. But like, I mean, you and me, Elizabeth, we're just some schmucks that play home games and build D&D tools for research purposes. So like, we are not entertainers necessarily in the same way that they are.
We
but
are musicians. We can give ourselves
that's true.
that.
We are performers, but there's a fine distinction there, I suppose.
Different stripe, right?
What was that?
I said, it's performers of a different stripe.
Indeed, yeah.
I'm just really glad that Doug was the first big person I played with, because I had so much fun with him in February, and I had a lot more. There was a lot more shenanigans out of me in February. It was kind of nice to not have to worry about generating anything. But we cannot say enough good things about Doug. Cannot.
Nope.
Also, just like Doug showing up and telling the Witcher game franchise what's what, and to stop being jerks about Ciri and Witcher 4. Look it up. Amazing. Love that guy. I love it. Like, I have no idea how we lucked into this. The story of how we started working with Doug is so absurd that nobody would believe me.
I will tell them because I think it's worth it. So
well, yeah, but I don't necessarily like want him to get bombarded.
Well, I think part of it is that
leave out some key detail.
Well, he's a VT alum, which is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Also, you are Toblin, which is another big part of it.
The character I was playing is the one that is closest to me in real life. However, like, there wasn't a ton of that side of Toblin in the stream, really, because I was mostly just support. That is probably the character I play that's closest to me as a human. Because D&D taught me that I could do that. I think I talked about this on one of the panels with you, Frank. That's like, I think one of the things I learned from Dungeons and Dragons is that charisma wasn't my dump stat. I just kind of assumed it was. Like, I'm an autistic kid. I've been told I'm weird my whole life. But there is like a certain amount of if you just lean into that. Like we joke that okay, I'm not going to get into all the details because it just gets really weird. But we were driving home from the Ren Fair, and some of us came up with a lot of things about how all of us would be as humans in D&D mechanics. So I won't embarrass Chris with all the details. But we did decide that between me and Chris, we're both high int, we're both high charisma. But the way it manifests is really different. Like, Chris is more of an int caster, and I'm more of a charisma caster, but in ways that don't make sense. And I will say D&D taught me that I could form connections with people and build community. And I mean, although, yes, like Doug has this Virginia Tech connection, he did not know us. He did not need to respond so positively and lovely to a cold call. He agreed to be on the advisory board before we had an advisory board. And he's like, what are the responsibilities? I'm like, I'll get back to you. No, he's fantastic. And he's been deeply invested in supporting work around gaming and accessibility long before we were in touch with him. Since he's based in the UK, largely, UK oriented or based charities and nonprofits. But that's what's really great is he really, really gets it. And Amy stepped in so seamlessly. She's a pleasure to work with. You can't take for granted that you're going to get genuinely kind humans. That's not an assumption you can make.
Yeah.
So they were
Like
fantastic.
I've never worked with, I've never even met either of them personally, but everything that I've heard about them, like their legend, indicates to me that you really couldn't expect anything less out of either of them, right? They walk the walk, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting thing about, I think, like the TTRPG slash actual play community is that because of its nature, where it's the line between fan and creator and fan creator and celebrity is so thin, and these categories are so adjacent, and there's so much overlap. And then like people that write adventures, also people that play. Like Amy's written adventures and things. Daniel Kwan, right? Who we were in touch with, or not? Well, I guess like tangentially, someone was in touch with him for us about potentially playing. That didn't end up panning out, but like another person who plays, writes adventures is a known quantity in that world. But because it's so small, and because the profit margins and the kind of amount of money that goes into this is so minuscule compared to video games or film, or even like, I suppose, some kinds of like the high level YouTube content creation these days, like those are much more, I think, in part because there's a lot more money and there's a lot more potential for making it big, so to speak.
Right.
You tend to run into less savory types.
Well, and I think there's also something inherent in the game itself, right?
Yes, that's true
Like, it's
too.
not that you're never going to get an actual player who's a scumbag, but it's that like
course.
the nature of what we're trying to do kind of starts weeding people out.
Mm.
I'm not going to say Critical Role. I'm going to say Critical Role. Folks will know what I'm talking about. But like, you know what I mean? If you're not going to be collaborative, if you're not going to be generous and honest and all of these other things, it's not going to work long term.
Yeah.
Because D&D is a social contract. And as long as these actual play shows stay small enough and close enough to that spirit, I think we'll continue to see, whether or not you're a good human, at least you're one that knows how to collaborate, right? Like, I feel like that would be the baseline. But also, you spend so many hours together in this that people do want to spend time with people that they like. And that are also very likable. I mean, it does completely throw me for a loop when you're interacting with folks, because like, as an autistic person, my first instinct is I can't tell if someone actually likes me. Like, at any moment, I'm going to realize that everything is wrong, life experience. I mean, autistic people are exponentially higher to experience everything from like domestic violence to be victims of scams to like whatever, because we have trouble with that. So, when you're dealing with somebody that doesn't need to be nice, that's going to be like extra. So I don't know. We've been deeply honored to attract the right kind of people, potentially because these are not paying gigs. Gonna be really clear,
Right.
They made nothing. Like, they made nothing at all.
Charity, right?
It's charity, yeah.
Because sometimes you do charity things and you do get paid some. This was not one of those cases. And they knew that, and they came anyway.
To Chris's point, right? Like I think you do get, for lack of a better term, like a higher quality participant, right? When the space is so small and so driven by the creative force, right? People are here out of the love of the hobby, out of the love of the art form, and there is a lot less corporate influence, outside of certain companies' book printing and book production. But then we see the problems that come up there and how that does not align with how the rest of the community moves and operates, right? You see the disconnect there. But yeah, I mean, I think we've been circling the topic of actual play and haven't really attacked it. So let me attack it.
Hey, let's go. Let's go.
Roll initiative.
I think me personally, I love the rise of the actual play as an art form, because to me it's like the return of the radio drama, and it's just a transformed version of that. But the aspects that I enjoy most about actual play is when people are when they approach it like it's a production, right? They understand that yes, we're playing a game with hopefully our friends or at least people that whose company we enjoy, but we are also making a product, making a form of entertainment for a viewing audience, and that some attention must be made to that, right? Our audio quality should be good, and our connection should be reasonably strong, at least to the effect that we can control it, right? There is some attention paid to that. It's not the same, and I don't think it should be treated the same as playing a game with your friends around the kitchen table, right? Those are two totally different dynamics. And I don't know. I'm not going to say you can never get both, but I think it'd be very, very difficult. And we've already
Even when
done
it's
Critical
people
Role.
you
That's the closest we get, right? Those people are actually
yeah.
friends in their real lives. That's not probably how the game worked around their kitchen tables, but you feel the connections that they have personally.
Right.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to get at, is like, even when we have the same cast, when we're on camera versus our home games, totally different. And I
Super
do
different.
encourage anybody that is getting into streaming or streams, if you're getting burnt out, keep playing home games. Like, remember what you like and that you like these other humans. That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting.
I was going to ask you, Chris, how do we balance that? But you can go off on what you were going to say first.
I mean, it's effectively that. It's like, this question of the performance versus, how D&D feels in a home game. I think part of this is, for me, is also colored by the fact that, like, I am kind of a D&D Luddite, or I think just a TTRPG Luddite generally. Like, I really want to play in person. I like playing in person. I think that it's just nice to be around a table with people and, like, sharing the space. And so I have trouble with online D&D, or other kinds of gaming, just because of the kind of lack of that shared space, like the physical presence aspect. Like, obviously there's a shared space, like, within the kind of moment online. So that's part of it. For me, all my actual play stuff, I guess, Tosca was in person. But that felt a little different to me. In part because it also was recorded. We weren't actively streaming it.
Sure.
So it was easier to forget about the camera.
I was going to say Alcina was in person.
Alcina was in person.
Live.
That one felt really good in a way, I think, because it was one of our very first things, and I had no idea about anything. Ignorance is bliss. And so I was just able to just, like, pretend it was a home game, even though there was a camera on me, because I didn't know any better. And so maybe it's not the most, not that anything I do is, like, the most entertaining thing in the world, but, like, that one probably, like, I was thinking a little bit about how is this a performance, but not to the degree that I have been with more recent streams, where, like, we're raising money, right? We want this to be entertaining, we want this to be engaging, we want to make sure that there's moments where the audience can engage through the chat. And so, but that does change how you play, and that does change how you engage with the game as a kind of format, right?
Well, and even how much you focus on the rules too, and like how you manage any potential conflicts and interpretations of rules and things.
Yeah, when I'm streaming, I'm much more like, you know what, we're doing this, let's move on. Just because we have so little time, and it's, you don't want to interrupt the flow too much by looking stuff up.
But there is also pressure to get it right, because people are going to give you garbage. So we don't just totally throw it out the window. And there are some people that take that approach, and this is something I think we continue to debate. I'm thinking back to at the beginning of the BBEG, like the big combat at the end. I cast Silvery Barbs. And there was an interesting sequence of events where you called for a con save before technically you should have, which is fine.
Right.
For Doug. He failed that con save. Then the creature attacked. Then I called Silvery Barbs to spare Gary from that attack. And then as a consequence, I asked if I could give advantage to Gary, which would effectively let him re-roll that con save too. He rolled it and he made it. And I remember Doug being like, I have no idea what just happened. and we just kept going.
Yeah.
But that was a moment where like we had a rules discussion very fast in our shorthand that we're way too used to. But also that pressure to like keep moving and keep on. And I
Yeah.
thought of that as interesting because also in my head I was going, "You're not going to fight this one." You know what I mean? Like whatever he says, we're going to go with. I'm just going to ask.
Yeah. Well, but like it ultimately made a lot of sense because, in part, because I screwed up the rule, right? Like that conversation was supposed to happen at the end of the turn. So everything that happened to me made sense in terms of because what I tend to think of with this is like at the end of whatever adjudication we're doing, does the mechanical difference matter? In this case, it did not, right? Because it was going to be the same one way or the other, whatever happened, and so there's no point in being like, oh, well, it has to be this or it has to be that, right? Unless something is going to drastically unbalance the outcome of a particular situation based on a rules call, which is rare, I would argue, relatively rare, then it's not worth it, right? It's easier to just be like, okay, this happens, great, let's move on.
That is a little of the way we manage it. Is I think this one, without really explicitly talking about it, but in the past we have, the idea that I know, especially with the change to 2024, we knew that it was going to be hard to keep track of things like all of these weapon proficiencies and all of that stuff. So effectively, because of this thing, we pioneered actually with playtesting and with small events, this idea of like what an assistant DM is, that division of labor. We fall into that.
Yeah, we do.
For the most part, any rule adjudication, like I'm there, I'm looking up the rules, I've got everyone's character sheet up, like I'm doing a lot of that stuff, so you can focus on the storytelling, keeping it rolling.
Right.
I don't know what that's like from an audience perspective. I will say, like, from our perspective, it feels more comfortable than some of the alternatives, but like, I am curious, like, if that's something that gets noticed or is in the way, or if it's facilitating. Yeah, I don't know. Like, how does that read from an audience perspective?
Well, I can only give my perspective as an audience member. I didn't notice it at first, or I didn't notice it as deliberate moderation, deliberate GM assistance. It just felt like table chatter to me, and I'm fine with that. I was like, this is normal geek parlance. You know, this is how it sounds when you're standing around or sitting at an RPG table. This is fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, as the session went on, and it's like, oh, this keeps happening. This is like you are dual. You're handling two different duties at once. And I mean, I started to become concerned. It's like, well, are you enjoying your character? I didn't voice any of this because why? Why would I in the moment? That'd be super disruptive.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It seemed like you did. I don't think it's something I could do. I don't know that I would have the ability to divide my attention in that way, but it's good that you can, because I think it's helpful, right? And not
to be
just
fair, like I did make all the character sheets. So,
okay.
So like to be
That
fair,
helps, right? You're the most
it is different.
character.
It is different. Yeah. I had time to study, but no, sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay. The last thing I was just gonna say was it not only helps the GM juggle their already massive workload, but it also helps when you have a division of, and I'm not saying Doug or Amy don't know the rules, I'm sure that they do, but there is being professional actors does not equate to being professional game players, right? Those are two very different disciplines. And if you are busy doing one thing with your life and your passion, you maybe don't have a whole lot of time to read the latest updated version of the rules and be as sharp, right? Whereas if your thing is playing D&D or RPGs and you play every week religiously, you know those rules inside and out.
Yeah.
That's a strength that if you share it with the table, everybody benefits rather than if you lord it over people's heads.
Right. And I was going to say too along those lines is that with a one shot, you're creating this character, you are playing it once. It's not like when you're playing a home game or a campaign where like you start at level 1 or 3 or whatever, you know the basics of your character, and then you gradually are adding stuff over a long period of time, so that by the time you wind up at level 7, for example, you are not like, you have an idea of what you do typically, like in role-playing situations versus in combat situations. You have a flow to it, you know where stuff is on your character sheet. all of that makes it a lot easier to deal with. But when you are throwing somebody into a one-shot with level 7 characters, which is where things start to get slightly complicated, it's hard to remember everything that's going on in your character sheet. And so, and also, like you just said, right, this is a new rule set. It is just different enough from the previous rule set that it's annoying. And so there's, lots of room for error. And so having kind of, like an assistant DM or a co-DM kind of situation is really helpful when, especially when you're on a live stream, you have to be moving things along. You want to make sure the audience is having a good experience. The less you can spend mired down in details, the better. And the more time then you can spend on kind of letting people do shenanigans.
And I had talked myself into a different character. I was going to play a Drake Warden Ranger. Number one, because I think Rangers, people are too hard on them. I do think there are things about the class that sometimes feel unfair. Like, seriously. Some of their abilities are so hyper-focused, you never really get to use them, or they're very travel-oriented, but nothing else in the game supports that or whatever. But I do think Rangers are better than people think, and I thought that would be fun. I also thought it would be fun to accuse Gary of having tried to kill my dragon because he thought it was a basilisk. There was a lot in that of Doug and I going at each other with Witcher references and just trying to see who would break. It's fine. It's how we do. It was amazing. But Chris was like, you should play Toblin because you know Toblin. And, that was absolutely right because I don't have to spend as much time. There were a couple of things because things are new. But that really helped. Before we get too far into this, I want to read something Gustavo put in chat.
Oh, yeah.
So we were talking about him to let him have his voice here. Amy and Doug were excellent to play with. I had never met them before session 0, and they were so nice. But what really makes them amazing is their generosity with their time. Not only in making time for our game, but also for us as players in the moment. And I will treasure that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they were great about kind of making sure that everybody could have moments in the course of a different scene to contribute. And that, as a DM, that just makes my job so much easier and just makes my job also a joy when I can just step back and let you all do stuff and interact, and I'm not having to kind of, worry about, is this person feeling included? Are they engaging? That was not something I was worried about.
And they were worried about whether we were having fun. I don't know if they voiced this to Gustavo, but both of them checked in with me afterwards, and just every time, even for the February live stream, I remember telling Doug, I'll just figure out whatever I want to play. And he was like, no, what do you like to play? What do you want to be? He was very concerned with this idea that he wasn't trying to come in as the star of the show. It was more interesting to have that. Which was really, really great.
Yeah.
I do have a totally random thing to ask.
Okay.
Did anyone notice me hit my head incredibly hard during the live stream?
No.
I didn't. No.
Okay, good. So, for the record, there was one point I realized my computer wasn't plugged in, so I had to go try to plug in my computer, and stuff
I remember
was in the
that
right place.
happened.
So I hoped I was off screen, but I could not verify it. I was reaching for something. I stood up more than I meant to, and I hit here on the corner of that air conditioning unit.
Oh no.
So my ear was swelling, and I had a knot behind my ear while we were playing in that last combat.
I'm sorry.
So I kept adjusting my hair because I noticed there was a red. I was just curious. This is one of those things that's been at the back of my mind this whole time, was if anybody noticed that.
I did not notice.
I wasn't sure how much. From where I was, I could not tell, and I just kind of froze. It's that level of pain where you just freeze and try to.
Don't look for it in the replay. Don't do it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I did not. But I was really curious, just for my own edification.
Well, so speaking of that last combat, and speaking of the difficulty of playing random new character sheets, let's talk about that, or let's just talk about the combat generally. Because this is one of those things where, like, I think combat can be the downfall of actual play, right? If it's like too dragged out, if it's too rules intensive, if it's too like let's look stuff up now. And so full disclosure, when I first wrote this adventure, it was for level 9 characters. It will go back to being for level 9 characters when I put it in the book. So an aboleth makes more sense, which is CR 10. Also, the characters that I playtested this with most recently were incredibly overbuilt. I'm looking at you, Ed. And so I was like, oh, okay, this was fine. Like they
there was one more too. There were 5 of them. And to be clear, like the characters, I think we mentioned this, right? Like Doug and Amy in particular were not building their characters to be the most powerful characters. There was one point I looked at this sheet, and I mean, I was itching to like fix it, because so much of what we were doing with playtesting and stuff, we wanted people to feel like big damn heroes. So if there were little edges we could give them with a pre-gen sheet, we would give them those little edges. So when I look at things like a lot of odd numbers and stats, that I know how I can round these to even numbers and get some stuff. It's really hard not to do it or to like rearrange the stats. But you know, that, yeah, it does change how you balance combat, because when you play tested it, it was with people that were, their builds were very focused on combat. They were really excited to do the combat. Whereas these builds were much more thematic. Although, funnily enough, Toblin would have been a beast in that combat. And it makes it extra funny that she's the one that you took out. And it put me in an interesting position because it was this actual play moment, right? Where part of me is very happy to have the time to try to focus on all the rules and all the other stuff. Part of me also know it was like, okay, I'm feeling a little frustrated with the role, but like it's fine. But then I'm like, wait, okay, this is actual play. It would be weird if I'm not at all frustrated, so I should maybe like show the frustration. But then I'm like, well, if I show too much frustration, Chris is going to feel bad, and I don't want Chris to feel bad. That was like the sequence of things happening in my head with how to respond to that. And I do think early on I might have rolled the first save with advantage, and then I forgot after I hit my head. I'm not sure how that went.
Yeah, there was.
I'm not sure the order of events.
We forgot. The first one was with advantage, right? Because you had a resistance to charm, and it was a charm effect.
Because I thought I asked, and I thought you said no, and now I'm not sure that that's what happened. Because again, everyone, whether this happened before or after I hit my head, I had hit my head really hard. That's some important context.
We can roll the tape, but I seem to recall that I said, yeah, roll that one with advantage, and then I forgot. Because I was trying to run a legendary stat block.
I don't remember if I actually did roll it with advantage or
that I don't know.
That's the part I don't remember.
Okay.
But it really would not have mattered. I mean, almost every roll was between 1 and 4. And I had 8 different D20s I rolled. For the record, I did not roll any OTG dice. I did have OTG dice around me. They were behind me, but I did not roll any OTG dice. I got one high number. I think my favorite was the really low performance check on my ballad. That felt good. Although in retrospect, it kind of felt right, because at one point I saw something with Doug's eyes, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Gary Alt. I need to protect my bard friend." You know, so it would have been a little weird for the story if the bard then comes out slashing like a Valor bard does. So it was really funny. Like it did let his character be more his character. So again, sometimes the dice have a story to tell and it's not your story. Like the character I brought is a supremely competent and confident, charismatic character. She was not that way that day. Like none of the rolls went her way. And it's really interesting. Like bad rolls can make for a really, really good story.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, frustrating in combat when you are being controlled by an alien intelligence, but
I also like cringing because I was doing the strategist and I had long enough to think about like just how bad you could have made things. I think your choices were good because he also wouldn't have known everything about the character.
So here's the thing, like, I mean, I what's the name of that? The Monsters Know What They're Doing, that the book series, which is, I quite like, because it does help you to kind of, yeah, there you go. Keith Amon. That I think is really helpful as a DM, to be like, how to make combat feel more alive and more tactical and more kind of interesting for players, and thereby more interesting to watch, right? If there's more options for the characters to do. So, I take that advice to heart. And the thing with aboleths is that aboleths are supposed to be these like alien and beings from the far realm, and that are like these supremely intelligent schemers that are immortal. They never die, and if they do get killed, they come back to life. They have perfect memories, all this kind of stuff. So like, I remember thinking in the course of that combat, I don't remember specifics now, but there were moments where I was like, oh, I could do things that would make this even worse, because the aboleth knows to do that. Like, it could have focus fired Gary and brought him down and knocked him unconscious, and then it would have been 2v2. One of them's a legendary creature. And so that would not have felt good, I think. And so I played it off as though the aboleth is getting a little overconfident in my mind. Just had it keep attacking Toblin. But anyway, it's interesting. But this is, again, balancing the kind of demands of a performance playing D&D versus a home game. Like, if this were a home game, I probably would have TPK'd you. So that's, that's a thing. But because of this, it was granted. We also had our Deus Ex Machina moment.
Oh my god! Can I talk about that?
Well, so actually, first before that,
okay, go for it.
Well, so I was going to ask Frank, when you're watching kind of actual play and combat and things like that, how as an audience member do you engage with it? Because it can definitely it's very different than the hard candy LLC goth goat nonsense, right? Which is and that's really the fun part a lot of the time.
So I guess there's a couple of layers to that answer. One is I'm not that big a D&D fan in general, and I'm not up on. I haven't seen anything related to 2024. We'll leave it at that. I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. I enjoy the performance. I enjoy people embodying their characters. That part is always going to be fun to me, regardless of what system anybody's using. I think that part is always going to shine. As far as if I'm tuning into an actual play because I want to see a good combat, it's probably going to be like Pathfinder or Starfinder, like a game that's built for that. And then I will have the anticipations, like at some point they're going to break out a map and I'm going to get a good fight. If I'm not looking for that as a viewer, then I just watch any other actual play, and then I don't care. Like, they're going to theater of the mind combat, great, cool. I'm here for the narrative right now.
Right.
And that's kind of where I was for when I was watching your live streams. Like, I'm here for a narrative experience. I don't care what the system is, and I'm just invested in these humans that are playing their characters, and then the characters that they brought to the table, which were all fantastic. But yeah, like I said, if I'm hungry for a combat, then I'm gonna be deliberate in choosing which stream to watch, and knowing that they're gonna deliver that to me. Other than that, I kind of don't care.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart, right? And this is one of the things about D&D is like, it is the classic jack of all trades, master of none kind of TTRPG system, right? Like, it can do a lot of stuff, and that's the fact that you can make some kind of bullshit like opera nonsense work in D&D is great. You probably do that in other things too, because other systems are also flexible. But D&D has made it kind of one of its selling points, right? That it is so broadly applicable to different things. But as you say, right, there are certain systems that are going to be, on the one hand, like way more focused on the narrative and the storytelling and the kind of that aspect of it. And then there are other systems that are going to be way more focused on the combat and have a lot more kind of crunchy mechanics that are interesting for people that are into that.
Toblin needs to play Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
We can make that happen.
I really want to play the Root RPG at some
Oh.
point, and that's PBTA.
I've never.
Can I segue off of that real quick?
I was
'Cause
gonna
that-
say
you hit the nail on the head.
I've never done Powered by the Apocalypse as a player. I have only like led games, like GM'd it, and it was only the Avatar: The Last Airbender one. So just
That's
to
like
share my
the
very
most
limited
complicated
experience.
PBTA game you could run.
And
Oh,
and it was
really?
with it was with kids who were like 10 and younger,
Uh-huh.
maybe even younger than that. There was one that was like not in school yet, and it was on Zoom. I make bad choices.
That sounds rough. That's
Anyway,
rough.
sorry. Yeah, tell us about Powered by the Apocalypse, because
Well, not just PBTA, but Root in particular. Small plug. I'm going to be at Gen Con running Root for Magpie Games all weekend. So if you want to come play some Root and you're going to be in Indianapolis at the end of the month, come find me there. But also, if you can't make it, understandable. Go to Magpie Games and get Root. It's a great game. It's a lot of fun.
That is awesome. OTG has the smallest presence at Gen Con, courtesy of our friends at Nomnivore Games.
Awesome.
We will have a couple of little goodies there. Actually, I can show you
Go bother Derek.
one of them. Yeah, go bother Derek. Derek is one of our advisory board members.
My dog is cuddling his lamb chop toy, and I need to take a picture of it. I'm very sorry.
Definitely do that. So we have these lovely cards, and then they have our info on the back, including a QR code that'll take you to our website. And then we'll have the decision guides there, the ones that on one side give suggestions for things for combat and for exploration and social. The other side has combat and tracks your 5e action economy. You can pick those up from the Nomnivore booth. They're being so incredibly kind. I cannot emphasize this enough. When we were having problems getting guaranteed shipping in time, they're like, "Oh, well, it's only an hour and a half out of our way if we just like come to you and pick them up."
Just an hour and a half. No worries.
Just amazing folks. So
Other people who walk the walk, right?
y'all have at least 2 things to do at Gen Con. Well, I guess 3, because you also need to check out the Nomnivore stuff at the Nomnivore booth.
Yeah.
Love that.
But yeah, Frank, that's awesome. I really wish I could be there and play, because I got the Root RPG books at PAX East, actually, because I play a lot of Root, like the actual game, which I also really like. And so I picked those up and I was reading them through them a little bit, and so I'm really excited to try it at some point. So one of these days.
One day soon. Like, as soon as I come back from Gen Con, I'd love to run that for y'all. I will say that the design behind Root, if you're familiar with the board games, which is good, then you will feel all of the design parity between the RPG and the board games. You will notice that. I haven't had that experience running one shots, because usually it's people who have never played the board games. Like, this looks fun. There's cute animals in it. Let's play. And then it devolves into Happy Tree Friends. And it's. I mean, I think it's hilarious. But you when you're not building towards the Game of Thrones with animals, like drama, political strife, then you don't get it.
Right. Well, and that's what's funny about what and it becomes Happy Tree Friends. That's why it's funny, because that game is like, it's nastier Risk, basically, but with cute animals.
Yes.
Like, that game is brutal. I have had some capital S, capital G, some games of Root, and it's cool though that, like, to hear that lines up. Anyway, I think we've drifted off topic. Yeah.
Well, I do want to mention any of y'all watching, if you have questions for any of us, please go ahead and drop them in chat. Atlas will let us know, even though the 3 of us have, internet issues, so we can't view the chat ourselves.
Not actually on the stream.
Atlas will convey that information to us. And yeah, so Gen Con, y'all have the things to do. Unplugged, you're going to be at Unplugged too, right, Frank?
Yeah, Unplugged for sure, 100%.
Awesome. So we're going to play Rooted Unplugged, is what I'm hearing.
We can do that.
I'll bring it. I've got all 6
These are
expansions.
things we can do. The Access 4 Gaming Lounge is going to be run by OTG and Dots. So if you want to be running games in there, be a storyteller in there, you can bring any system that you want, but you need to go through the PAX Together Intersection Storyteller applications. That deadline closes I'm pretty sure it's August 14th at 5 p.m. And there's a little box. It'll tell you at the end of the application about the Access Forward Gaming Lounge, and you can check a box if you want to be considered. You'll have basically an extra interview to the process that'll be with some of us OTG and DOTS folks, where we'll talk about whether and how we can make your game as accessible as possible. But that also means if you want to play, you'll be able to find us there in a variety of other places.
And
So
for
when
folks who show up and want to play, I know you typically have to sign up for those games through the PaxNav app, and you've got to do it like bright and early. But what they don't tell you is that they hold some seats aside. So if you see a game that you're interested in and it looks full, go to the PTI anyway and ask about that game. There may still be seats. People may drop out last minute. So don't give up. Go physically and ask. There still may be seats available for a game that you want.
Yeah, we almost always have walk-ins. Go early and check in, because then you'll have time to do something else. But especially if you're flexible about which game you play, we should be able to, I don't know. We had to cancel games because we didn't have enough people at PAX East. Not a ton of them, but a few times. So don't let that happen to you. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be running my very autistic adventure as a very autistic person. You don't have to be autistic to play. You just have to know what you're in for, which is a bunch of riddles and a lot of autism out of me. Just tism times. You should not. We'll let you plug yours later, Chris. I don't want you to give away anything yet.
All right, fine. Well, one thing that is not a surprise that I'm going to be running La Llorona again, because that was really fun last time. But one thing I was going to say, although like we can also talk about Unplugged more if we want, I was thinking about Katesh and the stream and kind of, and I guess to connect it to, you know, playing these one shots at cons and things like this. Like you want the players to like walk away, right, with like, oh, that was fun, or oh, here's this memorable kind of thing that happened, especially when you're running a game, right? Like you want it to have an impact, you want people to enjoy themselves. One of the moments that I guess it's both a moment that I was proud of on the stream, but also a moment that I regret on the stream was when they met the birds and they had to give up the memories. Because I enjoyed it and I was proud of it because I felt like it produced a really cool moment, and especially like Amy's kind of thing that she came up with was just amazing and beautiful, and like, you know, it was really, really poignant. My regret was that we did not have time for me to have everybody do that, because I would have loved to have done that. In fact, I even had in my notes, behind the scenes spoilers, that thing where it was like, if we get to $50, there's an enemy power up. So one of them was I switch that initial combat where they fought the things in Little Katesh, the undead. I switched out the lead undead for a harder one, which, looking back, I don't know that I needed to do that. But one of the other things I had written down was birds demand more memories, because in the way that I initially wrote the adventure, it was just going to be one. Like Favronia would give one and the players would give one. But with the way things were, like, I don't know, I felt like it was a missed opportunity to not have everybody do it, but we were also like way behind from where we should have been time-wise. So like I still like, I feel like I wish I had done it. Like I really do, but then we maybe would have had to go. So.
Toblin had some, but they weren't going to be as relevant. Atlas, you can ask this in the chat if Gustavo can hear us and would let me know if I can share his, or if he would like to share them next time he's on stream. Gustavo had some great ones. It was interesting because Gustavo and Doug right away were ready to go. But then Amy gave hers. I don't think Doug told us what his was.
He said it afterward, I think, or maybe on a break, very briefly. It was something.
I know Gustavo said his.
Two things from chat. First of all, Gustavo says share away. Also from Gustavo, whenever we get the chance. Frank, could you elaborate on what makes actual play combat in other systems more entertaining for you?
Sure.
Ooh, maybe we should do that, because then Gustavo can tell his own story later.
Yeah, sure.
Do that now?
Go for it. What makes other systems more engaging? Because
Okay.
this is very cool.
So again, if I'm looking for a combat heavy experience as a viewer, I'm typically going to seek out a game that I know is robustly designed around that play pillar, right? So Pathfinder, Starfinder typically are my go-tos. I may also look for like the Marvel Multiverse game that's out now. I don't know how many people are playing that. Those games have really good, robust combat. They typically are reliant, I would say, on a grid. Certainly, people run those games, their combats in those games without them. That's a choice that I wouldn't make, but for the most part, people who are streaming that and are deliberately choosing those systems, I think, are playing it to their strengths. So when I'm looking for a fight, that's kind of what I want. I want to see tactile elements. I want to see players making deliberate but also hard decisions, right? How many creatures can I hit with my fireball? How many allies can I heal with my spell? Stuff like that. And I want to be able to look at the same data that the players are looking at so that I can understand where their decisions are coming from. Outside of that, like that really is like if I'm gonna tally all of my actual play consumption, which is usually like in the car in my commute, right? Podcasts. So obviously there's no visual element to a podcast. So I'm usually not tuning in for that. I'm usually tuning in for a good narrative. Mostly it's PBTA stuff. Sometimes it's like Fate or other like fiction first kinds of games. But even those games have combat, right? If you're listening to an Urban Shadows game, there's a lot of violence in Urban Shadows. But because it is narrative centric, right? The tactics of a combat are abstracted away, and what matters, what really you dig down into, is the social consequences of a combat, right? A lot of times you're asking, why are we fighting? Do we have to fight? Okay, it turns out we do. How bloody is this conflict? Who's heard about it? What's the fallout? Oh, this guy we fought is the vampire prince's nephew. Oh shit, we've got to deal with the fallout of the. It's not that we won the fight; it's that what happens after. Because even if you ace a combat and it's a blow through, now because it's usually like a modern context, or right, those games tend to care about social relationships more, and there's mechanisms behind that. There's always going to be gravity after the fight ends. So the fight is usually the least interesting part of combat in systems like that. But those are all design elements, right? That stuff has to exist in the rules usually for there to be like scaffolding for the players to grab onto and like latch onto. Okay, we care about this now. So that's
I love that about Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's funny because a lot of times I am far more ambivalent about combat. Like we were talking about this, I think, last week. I don't know. It comes up a lot where conceptually there's part of me that always wants my players to choose combat, like to never feel like it's forced on them. Like I want to make sure there's alternative solutions, and that can actually be really stressful for D&D players because that's not what they're used to.
Right.
I mean, one of our friends at one point was being so sweet, logged on early for a game and was just like, Elizabeth, this is not like a criticism, but like, are we gonna have combat soon? And I was like, you could have had combat a lot. Like, you just have to pick a fight with somebody. That's how you get combat. But the thing I liked about Avatar: The Last Airbender, man, is it in there, right? Like, you're not rolling to hit, which really messed with the little kids. So they were rolling a die anyway, and they were just like shocked that no matter what they got to hit. But it's how you frame it, and also the relationships that characters have with each other, the way they call each other in when they do something wrong, and they're trying to like balance different values and things like that. But I would like to get into Powered by the Apocalypse a lot more because it does seem to align with a lot of the things I'm interested in about TTRPGs. One of the downsides, I will say, is it is going to be harder to make it more broadly accessible, in the sense that it is very text heavy. The way that like the character dossiers work, you have a lot of text that you don't need because you make choices, and your choices abandon some of that text. I was talking to some folks at Dots about this, about like some of the things conceptually we would need to do, because it's not just making it screen reader accessible, right? Like there's gonna have to be another level. I'm very intrigued by it. Like if I had my way, if we got to the point where it felt like the D&D tools were working enough and I could go play, I really want to play with some Powered by the Apocalypse stuff. Because
I'm your guy whenever you get to that point. I will say I love Avatar. I think it is a brilliantly designed system. It is probably the most mechanically robust and complex PBTA game, period, that I am aware of.
Okay, that makes me feel better because it is robust, and it kept me from trying others because I was like, if I haven't figured out this one yet, why would I start learning another one? But that makes me feel better. And
It has so many combat rules. I mean, if you play Cartel has one combat rule, and it's called "Get Fucking Shot." So like, and this is kind of more typical of PBTA games to have very
okay, we got a lot of games
very
we have to
small
play.
combat.
That's what I'm hearing, Frank, is we have a lot of games in our future.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is not Avatar. I kickstarted Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I really enjoy that when a fight starts in Avatar, not everybody has to participate. So it really calls back to the question of why are we fighting? Do we need to fight this person? And if you have a schism within the group, which is actually healthy in PBTA games, like the team members don't always agree with each other. You may have the Firebender and the Earthbender aggressive, it's like let's kick these guys' asses, and then the Airbender is all peace. It's like actually should we? And then kind of like in the cartoons, right? That Airbender is going to be skirting around the combat, looking for opportunities to either end the combat or call somebody out on their values and like try to end it with words rather than punch in the face while violence is erupting around them. And it really emulates the show, right? You feel like you're in an episode of that cartoon. I know that they consulted with actual martial artists for their combat rules, and not in the sense that it makes them dense and robust, but in the sense that combat is always about a trade, right? Whenever you're going to go in to attack somebody, whenever you're going to defend, you have to give something up to get something. There's always going to be an exchange, and I think you feel that. You feel that in the design when you play the game, and it really, again, it's one of the more complicated games, so it takes a little time for that to click, but when you get there, seeing that light turn on in players' eyes is very, very rewarding. So
even the social part of it is really robust and interesting. Like this idea that you have two traits and you're trying to balance between them, but sometimes it's advantageous to lean really far into one or really far into the other, but there are consequences for that. And depending on the type of character you pick, it's different traits that are opposed to each other. And some of the things that other characters will do will challenge that shift in your balance, which you can choose to resist or to accept. And it's really interesting. It also, without giving it away, there is in some of the early sets, there's like a little adventure, which is the one I ran for the kids because I didn't know enough to write my own in this. And it's very much a mystery, and it gives you like potential answers, and then it also throws out there like you could choose to let the party choose the answer to the mystery. So in other words, based on where they explore and what they find, it's actually going to determine what really happened. So when you start playing as the storyteller, you don't actually know what happened. It was wild. It was a really conceptually interesting experience that I do want to try with D&D. The challenge with D&D is like people will just drop a fireball and the only person left standing is the murderer, right? Because of the way these stat blocks work. I have a party that likes to accidentally set fire to taverns and kill significant NPCs in the middle of a murder mystery. They've been killing more than the murderers. In their defense, it's because they have a wild magic sorcerer in a 2014 build that is set up with items and everything to roll as much as possible. And he just happened to, in both of these adventures, walk into a tavern. He wanted to interrogate and talk to a very significant NPC that he was suspicious of, and he wanted to subtle spell cast Detect Thoughts, and both times it set off a fireball. Like the odds of it happening are not super high once.
Spontaneously combusts.
But I do wonder, like, does that give you a really interesting edge, that idea? Because you're loosening the reins again, right? Like we've talked about that pressure of, is this the DM's world and you're just living in it and exploring it, or are you co-creating? And like, how much can you let off the reins without it just totally falling apart? So, be prepared for some weird conceptual stuff, Ed, and everybody. Well, whoever else is watching, Pocket.
I think
you'll have to deal with it.
this question of like how tight you hold the reins is interesting, and because it gets back to another conversation we had in a different stream about when you build one shots, like how much do you constrain the players in terms
Yeah,
of
how
like,
much do you constrain us when we decide that yes,
Listen.
there is an army at the gates, but we're going to gradually lure an old woman out of her home with hard candy?
That was fine. It was no, it was. So I will say, you didn't have to like. There was an option where you did not fight that final combat. There was a narrative possibility that I had in my notes that, but as you said, right, in D&D, the expectation is, oh, we're gonna fight the big bad now, which like is fine. Like, you know, for some people, you just want to fight, you know, be big damn heroes and all that kind of thing. But like, you could have talked to the Aboleth more. And maybe convinced it that
No,
the people...
Doug was like, I'm just going to shoot him
well,
with
exactly.
a crossbow because
But,
he has
like,
to be Geralt of Rivia. And that's
there
exactly
was-
what Geralt of Rivia would have done.
There is a world in which you could have convinced that Aboleth that the people that woke it up were actually at fault.
Do y'all know how many... No, because I would have done it because I had the highest persuasion. I would have rolled a nat 1 and we would have been in the same place.
That's
But
true.
do you know how many hundreds of hours I listened to Doug's voice and internalized it before I met him? It is... Like, I'm trying to figure out if he's
playing the Witcher
always...
games or just like
Yes,
aside from
yes.
that? Okay.
But I'm just wondering, like, how, you know, is he actually playing Geralt with other people? Or is this just because he really loves to mess with me? Chris has been in meetings with my boss where he'll switch into the Geralt voice just to mess with me because it just like breaks my brain.
I mean, if I had the privilege of voicing Geralt of Rivia and I knocked that out of the park the way Doug did, I probably would want to be Geralt all the time also.
Which is a good moment to point out that even if you haven't played the Witcher video games, you can go on Netflix and watch the new animated Witcher offering.
Oh, that's right.
Because
Yeah.
he voices Geralt in that with Joey Beatty, who does Jaskier in the live action television series.
That's cool.
And I have promised Chris, I'm not going to talk about my great antagonism, not antagonism. My great antagonistic feelings is probably accurate there.
Your
towards
antipathy.
Henry Cavill, which is not shared by very many people, and we're not going to get into that.
We are not going to get into that.
Amazing.
Yes,
So,
because if we get into that, we're going to be here all night, and we're already almost 30
we're
minutes.
not going to because we're just not going to because it's just pure. I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but
right.
No,
so,
anyway, but you can check out Doug's thing there. Also, The Natural Six. Was there anything from Amy we were going to promote again? Amy has like 3 albums out.
Yeah, she's got.
She only asked us to promo her Instagram, and yet she is doing so much more than that.
She's so sweet.
Isn't she in charge of what is that? A Dungeon in a Box, Skinny Minis? Skinny Minis are fantastic. So I think that's Amy's product. If not, she advertised it at least. So
that's the thing. Like, I can't even list it. There's just so many.
I forgot that I got new minis in the mail. I have to assemble them.
I got new dice in the mail.
I can't.
I haven't used them.
I can't spoil anything yet. Okay.
I did get a nat 20 last night.
Secret minis.
Good for you.
It was with a different set of dice.
I don't know. Any last thoughts?
I know we have run really late. Charity live streams are fun. This was the first time we had rewards and stuff. That was fun.
Yeah.
I would like to do that again. If people have suggestions, things they liked, things they didn't like, let us know because I'm sure we'll do something like this again. And we made everything up. We don't know what we're doing. I can't emphasize that.
That's the magic of RPGs anyway, right? You make it all up.
Yep.
Works out fine.
Well, that's the thing. You know, Atlas is like, so what are we setting the goal at? I'm like, I don't know. I did not expect us to raise $500, y'all. Y'all are amazing.
And we did somehow.
That was wild.
Dot appreciates it.
Wild.
On behalf of
Dot. And Dot's definitely, still needs a lot more. So, give to one of the. I mean, I think our link is still active if you want to throw more in there. But I think there's some other live streams too.
Yeah.
And there's video game streamers.
One starting tonight at 10 p.m. I think it's Pick Your Poisons Prods. And then there's another one on the 25th that starts at 8. from Mystery Game. So live from the apocalypse, I think is what they're calling it. So, and then I think there's other previous shows and broadcasts that have their links active. So if you missed one, but you want to like watch the replay and then donate through their channel, I think Just the Humans is still open, for example. Open the Gates is still open. So yeah, if you want to participate and help Dots print some new Braille dice, you can still help us, and we would appreciate it.
Yes,
And
you
I
should
think
definitely
you
do
can
that.
still register if you're a streamer, because I know they were looking for video game streamers, people that do stuff solo, especially if you use what is it called? Crowd control. Things like that. As you're streaming, you can still sign up to be a fundraiser. Like, this is running just through the end of the month, but there's still time. Yeah, reach out to Dots. They're awesome. Cannot say enough about Dots. I never ever thought we would be here. A year ago, we had just filmed stuff that we still mostly haven't released yet. I could not imagine this. So thank you all so much. We also think that there is a good chance that y'all helped us reach affiliate status on Twitch, although we've also been warned that they often tell people no the first time. This is another goal that we never even dreamed of setting out to achieve. So thank you. We will keep you posted. Mostly because we want to be able to create events and save VODs a little bit longer. But we are moving stuff over to our YouTube channel, so we'll be posting on socials about that. And yeah, thank you all. Thanks so much, Frank, for coming. I know Chris and I just
thanks for
talked
coming
a lot.
on.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And if you ever invite me back, I'd love to be back. But yeah, thank you all.
Oh, it's just a matter of when, not if. Don't worry about that part.
Yeah.
This is great. So yeah, Gen Con, go play Roots.
Yes, go play Root. Come on down.
Play Root for me.
Everybody. Have a good night, chat.
Bye.